one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I just watched The Game Changers on Netflix. Have you seen it? It's quite a revelation. If you're interested in nutrition and health, this is definitely worth a watch. Not that everything in it is necessarily good, complete, and correct, but it does open the doors for discussion and further research, and possibly could take you onto a healthier path for health and nutrition. I watched The Game Changers after being prompted by a friend of mine, seeing as we have been talking about health and nutrition. And I've started this channel talking about balance and instincts, because I think they encompass so many aspects of life. Nutrition and health both incorporate the ideas of balance and instincts. Ultimately, these things should be relatively passive to us. It shouldn't be such a hard thing to maintain ourselves in our environments. When you look at the natural world, the animal kingdom, yes, animals might struggle for a few days to come across their prey, but it's not so much rooted in, is it good for me, is it bad, let alone is it processed, what's been added. It's a much easier time in that respect, although the proximity or abundance of food sources, of course, could be an issue. Despite being made back in 2018, The Game Changers hasn't been on my radar at all. But I'm glad I watched it, and I encourage anybody to watch it. It's a documentary centered around former UFC fighting champion James Wilks from Britain, as he follows up after an injury on the best way to effectively repair himself and get back in the game. So he goes on essentially on a journey of research into health and nutrition. And what he found was against everything that he thought, and so many of us think.
I ate a lot of meat. They showed us commercials.
Steak, that's what a man eats.
Selling that idea that real men eat meat.
However, as someone who comes originally from South Africa and very much a carnivorous nation, surrounded by wildlife where you very much see that in action, it's very natural for me to gravitate towards eating meat. I love meat, and I find a meal is incomplete without it. So watching this documentary was a bit of an eye-opener. But having embarked on this journey in pursuit of bettering my own health in terms of my skin conditions and ailments in my guts, sleep concerns and energy, I've discovered a whole array of essentially conflicting information, and ultimately from intellectual sources as well. So The Game Changer adds to this. And having watched it, I have pursued looking to see what responses there have been on YouTube. And of course, there are a lot from a wide array of YouTubers, whether they be new or established people like Dr. Ekberg, for example. Brief background, James Wilks was a UFC champion, fighter, and he produced this, and along with a huge list of well-known names. You've got people like Arnold Schwarzenegger in that list, James Cameron, Jackie Chan, Novak Djokovic, Pamela Anderson, many athletes, Lewis Hamilton from the Formula One scene. In fact, I think there are 72 producers, varying from executive to co-producing, etc. So it's pretty loaded, and it does pull you in, having those names attached. And as Dr. Ekberg, Dr. Sten Ekberg, who you can find on YouTube, he also has a website. He originally came from Sweden. He was a decathlon athlete in the 1992 Olympic Games for Sweden. He went on to become a holistic doctor and has a fantastic YouTube channel, which I shall put in the description below. But as he points out, you can be really drawn in by fame and big names and mistake that for expertise. So you need to watch anything you see with a pinch of salt and know really where the research is coming from, and ultimately, is there an agenda? As Dr. Ekberg also points out, if you're on a mission to find something in research, you will find it. And furthermore, often when you don't find what you're looking for, that article often isn't published. So you'll find all sorts, whether it's psychology, relationships, nutrition, how to do better in photography, sport, whatever, whether it's a Canon, Nikon thing, Mercedes, BMW, there's always an agenda. There's always a camp on one side or the other, and whoever's producing the show ultimately has a leaning, a bias. And what I'm finding is ultimately there isn't consensus simply because there is not enough research and not enough balanced research in terms of a group of, let's say, medics and scientists getting together from a position of neutrality and working on this specific idea of diet and what's best for the body, and taking a holistic and balanced approach, looking at multiple samples. You'd need thousands of willing participants going across the various genre of nutrition and diets to really get decent results. But I can predict ultimately what they're going to find, as I've found looking at these various diets, and I've been on the carnivore diet for 6 weeks, although I'm beginning to move towards a ketovore approach. But what I'm finding is no one camp is right, simply because humans are not all the same. We ultimately have the same organs and relative, physiology. However, internally we have different body clocks, we have different blood types, we have different appetites and desires. We come from different environments. There are different influences on us. And that can be back to heritage as well. So ultimately, no one approach to exercise or nutrition, or even something like sleep, is going to suit every subject. So ultimately, when you watch The Game Changers, which is really pushing the notion that the vegan diet is good for you and you do not need meat at all, yes, there are successful vegans, and the show demonstrates that, whether it's the guy that's lifted the most weight ever, or whether it's the cyclist who performed amazingly well into her, I think, 40s from America, and the multiple Olympic runner who's done the Appalachian Trail. There are success stories, but what fits and suits them isn't going to fit and suit everyone else. For example, I've tried the carnivore diet. People like Dr. Jordan Peterson speak very well of it, as does his daughter Michaela. There are plenty of others, doctors as well as enthusiasts on YouTube, speaking of positive results for them. For me, I found after nearly 2 months, 6 weeks, I have problems with the diet. I seem to have problems with certain meat, like pork steaks, seemingly the fat. I have problems with low energy. But I generally love the taste of meat. I love my beef, I love chicken and fish. But my body seems to be asking for a bit more. And ultimately, for me, I need a better balance. But I can concede that there are certain people that are fixing, hopefully not masking, but fixing issues, be it skin conditions to issues internally, to even reports of receding gums regrowing. There's a whole plethora of things people speak of that are unexpected, because generally people start the carnivore diet to lose weight. And I did lose 5 kilos in 3 weeks. I didn't need to. I'm definitely underweight now. But that's a lot of the aim for many. But they're finding these extra benefits. Now, whilst I have found a degree of mental clarity, my sleep did improve a bit, but it isn't the best path for me, and I need to find a balance. And instinctively, and ultimately instinctively for everybody, the realization should be, like in some ways the Game Changers documentary unwittingly touches on it, but as do some of these other diets. Ultimately, the problem is processed food. It is sugars, artificial products. It's the industrial and commercialized aspect of the food industry. That's the problem. That's where people are getting into obesity, into lethargy, problems performing, etc., etc. And ultimately gut issues and brain fog and effect on the brain. So I think this boils down to finding a path, choosing a diet that you embark on, and then modifying it. Ultimately, as it does with most medicine, a good doctor will not read from the script and report back to you, but take your case individually and adjust, whether it's medications or a diagnosis, for your situation. Sadly, these days, with our busy lives and now aspect of the pace of life, people want simplicity. People want to take the easiest path as well, which is a shame because ultimately you can end up missing out on better results. But the pursuit of simplicity isn't always realistic. When you come to diets, you can't simply say that, oh, you are Western, therefore eat the Western diet. Oh, you're Mediterranean, eat the Mediterranean diet. Oh, you come from Asia, eat a rice-based diet. It just doesn't work because one size doesn't fit all. So you have to really embark on your own journey, following a mix of advice and not take everything as gospel. And I believe, unfortunately, it takes time, but you can find what works by listening to your body. And I'm still on that journey. I could come up with the formula that works for me. I can certainly report on it. And anyone who feels that they have a similar disposition or whatever can certainly try it. But you've got to ultimately realize that it may not work and you need to adjust. Maybe vegetarianism is for you, or maybe it is veganism. But whichever diet it is, as Dr. Mike, Dr. Ekberg, various experts say, you need to be sourcing top quality ingredients. You don't want the bottom shelf, cheap and processed packaged goods, but you want organic, grass-fed, natural products. That's my best advice that I've gleaned from various people, but we will continue this conversation in other videos, but I just wanted to have my brief say on my response to the Game Changers documentary. I do recommend watching it because a lot of these things, although they're not necessarily the right thing for you or the gospel truth, they provide information that leads to an opportunity for you to try or to see evidence that helps you make a better decision. See you next time.